Hi everyone, I'm Trey with Student of the Leaf. So today we actually have some pretty special things going on. But before we get into anything, let me go ahead and do my hatting thing that I normally do. And this hat is actually by Dapper Cigar Company. All right, now that I got my hat on, we can get started with the show. So, I'm actually not going to talk about Dapper Cigar Company because we have another special treat for you. The owner of Dapper Cigar Company, Ian Reith.
Hey, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
I like that. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make time for someone like me and to address my viewers and listeners.
Oh, no, absolutely. You know, my schedule is extraordinarily busy on a Sunday morning. Can I say that? I revealed our Sunday morning
time and date. It's super early. I usually drink coffee, so I'm pretty sure my listeners and viewers understand.
Sorry, I'm adjusting the microphone here. I accidentally popped it off on the back of the chair. So if people are curious at home, I'm not doing anything illicit. Couldn't think of a better way to spend my Monday or Sunday morning having a cigar and talking about tobacco, cigar business, general stuff, and yeah. Thanks for having me, and appreciate taking the time to do this.
Oh, well, thank you. I know that we talked about this a few months back. Probably, I don't want to say how long ago it was, but it was before Student of the Leaf actually started, before I started getting out any content. You were one of the first persons that I definitely wanted to sit down with because I really enjoy your backstory.
Yeah.
So, before we get into all of the nitty-gritty of the interview, as most of my viewers and listeners know, I have a horrible time and always forget to pair my cigars with the hat that I'm wearing for the day.
Hey, so I'm not wearing a hat today, so you're forgiven.
But we're actually going to be smoking, well, I'm going to have the La Madrina, and I believe this is the
Shade.
The Shade.
This is the Connecticut Shade,
Connecticut Shade,
this is one that we just released this last probably month. We had a partial shipment of two different sizes, the Bellicoso and the Toro.
Okay.
And then this is actually a Corona Gorda, and this one started shipping last week. So we're gonna try it. Hopefully it's great. If not, we'll lie and say it is.
Yes, right? I think that's what people do when they're cooking. They do the videos and they're like, so good.
That's not salty.
So what size? Now, if I get any salt out of this.
Yeah, right? Don't say anything.
I won't say anything.
No, I always wonder on cooking shows when things don't go right. I'd like to see the outtakes. Like, that's not right. It's a little too much cumin. Yeah. So this one, we're smoking the Corona Gorda. This is a, what is this? A 5 5/8 by 46.
Okay.
And this is the first time that we've done a Connecticut Shade wrap cigar outside of the Cuba Claro, which is our very first cigar. And so it's a special deal, and the cigar is our best-selling cigar, so it made sense that if we were going to do the Connecticut Shade, we'd do it on La Madrina.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll put it to test.
All right. So
with a little coffee with my paired Americano. Cheers.
Salute. So when you go to light your cigars, do you typically toast the foot yourself?
Yeah, so I do very similar to what you're doing. I'm not particularly picky with regards to, I know there's some people out there that prefer to use long grain cedar matches. And, there's a ritual. I mean, to each their own. But I don't generally do a lot of V cuts or punch cuts. I just kind of do a straight cut.
Okay.
Generally. I'm not saying I don't occasionally do a V cut. If somebody says, oh, well, you should try this cigar because it's really good in a V cut. Okay, I'll do that. But, I'm pretty simple. I usually give a straight cut. And, when I light cigars, I prefer to, some people jam that thing right up there. I try kind of not to do that, and I'll usually light from a little bit of afar. And I don't I'll be honest with you. When I travel, because you can't get these butane lighters on planes, I use a Bic.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So just to let you know where I'm at,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not particularly picky on it. I just try not to absolutely destroy the entire end of it. Sometimes I'll give it a little accelerant, a little windage.
Okay.
And then that's usually how I do it. And then I'm usually not one of those puffers and lighters at the same time. Not to say that maybe somebody with better palate than me could tell you exactly what nuances you're experiencing when you have a Bic versus a butane lighter versus a cedar match versus burning it versus not burning it. I just generally find after smoking all these years, you start it kind of even, you start it good, it usually helps through the process.
And you won't have to do a lot
wonky.
of touch-ups.
Hopefully. Yeah. I mean, obviously you still have manufacturing defects and, things like that. But, so anyways, I'm talking on any line, so let's go here.
No, that's the reason why we brought you on. We want you to talk.
Yeah.
So, one of the major things that I've noticed is a lot of your cigars, if not all of them, are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So, and I'm talking about flavor-wise, I'm talking about just the draw, the burn.
Right.
Typically, all of them are pretty consistent. Is there?
That's a good thing.
Is there a reason for that you can really?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say that consistency, I mean, thank you for saying that. That's actually the ultimate flattery in cigar manufacturing because, these are predominantly handmade products, right? And so when you have a handmade product, it's difficult to get it consistently made.
Okay.
Both from the blend perspective, which leaves are in there, what order do they go in there, what quantity, volume, etc., as well as, from a draw perspective, the consistency of this. I mean, I'd love to take credit for, the manufacturing consistency, but the reality of it is that the reason they're consistent is because the factory that they're out of has a very good attention to detail in terms of the manufactured consistency of them. For our blends, we make a lot of very varied blends, right? So if you go to our website, dappercigars.com, and you look at all of our blends, you'll see that, our detailed descriptions of the ingredients, tobacco ingredients, are usually a little bit more complicated than what you usually see.
Okay.
And so it's not because other cigars are not necessarily complicated, it's just that, we want people to see that we're using a lot of different leaf to create the experiences in this particular cigar. In this particular cigar, we have 5 different types of tobacco. And, it's difficult to have that. And it's an ingredient, right? It's a certain amount of sugar, a certain amount of salt, a certain amount of flour. And as anybody knows, you cook or whatever, if those ingredients greatly change between cigars, it's going to create a non-consistent flavor.
Correct. So
the manufacturing consistency is due to the manufacturing process at Noxa. And Raul Diesla, not Diaz, I'm sorry. Diaz is another person I was thinking of, but Raul Diesla is the production manager at Noxa, and he runs that entire factory. So one of his very small responsibilities is making sure that when we put cigars into production, that they are made consistently with the same ingredients and the same consistency, the same quantities, and not only that, but when it comes to like the draw, we personally draw test all the cigars. So what that means is there's a machine that a lot of factories use. I think they call it like the Draw Master.
The Draw Master, yes.
It used to be the Draw Master 2000.
Oh, nice.
I think. I think I remember seeing one that used to say 2000 on it. It was like Gateway 2000. Remember the computers?
Yes.
And then 2000 came, and they were like, it's just Gateway now.
Yes.
They didn't say 3000. They were just like, oh, we got to drop the 2000. I think back in the 90s, it was like you were forward thinking if you had 2000 on there.
Yes, because it's the future.
That's the future. Yeah, I understand. Good marketing. So, yeah, I think for our cigars, because they're all on the what we consider premium side. We want, and we kind of spec that all of our cigars are draw tested.
Okay.
And now it's not 100% perfect process, but when you're packing cigars that are relatively tight, if you don't do that in modern day era, you will get a lot of plugged cigars.
Okay.
Not to say that people don't smoke cigars of ours that are plugged, because of course they do. They're handmade products still, and the thresholds for testing, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But
now when we're talking about plugged cigars, just for the viewers and the listeners out there, we're talking about the cigars where the draw, you just can't get anything. And it's typically because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because there's some stems that didn't get taken out? Or
it could be, yeah, absolutely. It could be stems. It could be, it could just be too tight of a roll. It could be that the evenness of the tobacco that's going from end to end, there's a clump in there for some reason. There's, when you look at the making process and what the bunchero and the rollero do, and this really comes down to the bunching. Typically the male person in the pair of rollers that is basically assembling the bunch of the filler of the cigar. It's it's not. We're not talking about German razor blades here. We're talking about, this is a very manual, hand-done process that is prone to error.
Correct.
And that's part of the beauty of it. It's part of the fault and part of the beauty. The beauty is that it's a hand-done process, and there's a bit of elegance and nostalgia to it. And then the fault is that, with hand-done products, there can be error.
Correct.
And so the factories, they will do as much as they can to try to eliminate or try to catch many of these errors. And the draw test is one of those, right?
Okay.
After the cigar is bunched, after it has its binder on it, it's put into a mold, and then it's jammed into a draw tester, and there's a range of PSI to test whether it falls within or without the range. And sometimes, look, the ranges are different for every factory. And even though that's a very kind of scientific kind of thing, look, there's still cigars that get through that you can't draw them. And some people, they even make tools nowadays, little pokers, and there's some.
Was it Flowmaster or no? You know what? I'm not going to rack my brain about it. I'm going to do some research, and I'll put it down below.
yeah. There's like this even really precise German one with all the little spines on it that was created by a dentist or something.
Correct. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
actually.
Very nice thing, but obviously as a cigar maker, I'm never going to tell people that they need to use a draw master, or they need to use a draw freer for our cigars, and we hope they certainly don't.
But see, that's why I said earlier, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, but I have seen consistency. I mean, I might have had one cigar, but I've been smoking a lot of your cigars. No one's perfect, like you said. I mean, I've had some cigars from the Rocky Patel factory, from the Tatuaje line, that just wasn't drawing perfectly. And I mean, with something that, like you said, is handmade, hand rolled, it is prone to error.
Very prone to error. And I mean, as an example, you mentioned, Tatuaje. That's my father, Pepin Cigars. I mean, Pepin Cigars. If you look at their factory, you look at their production, you look at their farming, it's top notch, incredible. I mean, incredible. I think if you smoke cigars long enough and you smoke enough cigars, you'll know that no cigar is perfect, and you can get a $100 cigar or a $200 cigar or a $50 cigar, a cigar that you would think, if you're paying that kind of money for a particular cigar, that it would be perfect. And the reality of it is that doesn't exist.
Correct.
And sometimes it's not just about the draw. Sometimes the construction of the cigar has lended it to where the center of that cigar is maybe not placed correctly, or it's not directly in the center, and you get an off burning cigar, or you get there are a lot of manufacturing defects that can happen.
Correct. And actually, I had a question since you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen a cigar that has, like in the center, just start to crack?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, of course, the smoke starts leaving out that center, which means that the binder
like a hole, 2 inches from the front of the cigar or something.
Correct.
Yeah. There's a little passageway in there that, that the smoke or that the fire has managed to seep down into, and it's created a gopher hole. Yes. Tunnel. Yeah. I've seen that. I mean, I've never seen it on our cigars. No, I'm just joking. I mean, I've seen it, of course. Everybody, you've seen all that. And the reality of it is that any good shop, we're in a great shop here, and a beautiful shop actually in Visalia, California.
So he actually said it before I did, and I do apologize to the listeners and viewers. We're actually back here in Visalia, California, at the Sequoia Cigar Company. So there we go.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful shop. I mean, there's not a lot of shops that are this elegant. Really, really cool shop. So any good shop, here I'm sure is no different. If you get a manufactured default cigar, defected cigar, they'll happily replace that cigar for you, knowing that it's part of the business. And then, and then they'll probably, a lot of retailers won't even say anything. And if it becomes an issue, they, reach back to the manufacturers and say, hey, look, we got a manufacturing problem or something. But it very rarely happens.
Well, that's a good thing if the retail shops and lounges, they do reach back out to the manufacturers, distributors or anything. Just, it's another level of QA, because you guys can't be everywhere. And if no one's telling you that there's an issue, how
no. That it doesn't happen to us a whole lot, but it happens. And, I mean, I'll give you an example. The relative draw on a cigar. Okay, plugged is plugged, meaning you can't draw any smoke. But the level of resistance on a drag through a cigar varies greatly.
Okay.
Some people like a tighter pull. Some people like to have that. Some people like a really loose pulling cigar. So as an example, like if you were used to smoking like Padrones, the 26s or 64s, the way in which a Padron is rolled and the way it's packed, it's a very loose pulling cigar.
Okay.
You're gonna never probably have a draw issue with Padron. I don't think I've ever had one.
So I'm gonna be honest with the listeners and the viewers out there, and also you, Ian. I've never smoked a Padron.
Oh, good for you.
Yet.
Yeah, good for you.
I mean, I have to.
You got it at some point.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. So what you wouldn't know, but trust me, when you smoke a Padron and the way that it's rolled and the way that it pulls is a very loose pull.
Okay.
So I don't think you would ever get a situation to where a Padron is not going to draw correctly. Whereas the cigars that we make are probably on the opposite spectrum. What's happened the last 20 years, last 10 years, I should say, is that consumers have kind of given cigars the field test, right? The weight. And they want to kind of squeeze it and make sure it's not too much, play.
Correct.
And that's what's kind of become a standard for a high quality cigar. If you squeeze a cigar and that thing is too much sponge action, then they're going to go, I don't know about that. Maybe it's underfilled.
Correct.
And so we always run the risk now, in order to make premium cigars, we have to make these things as filled as possible and as weighty as possible, but also drawing correctly. That's difficult. And I don't know if you can do such a good job without things like these draw masters and stuff that basically give some sort of a quality control so that you're not putting out plug cigars all the time.
It's kind of hard, I would say, to cater to everyone's taste and
Impossible.
Right? So, I mean, it seems like you found that nice little balance in between everyone, because like we said before, the draw on this and the consistency, like it's not too loose, but it's not a hard draw as well too. It's like right in the middle. So it's for me, and all of this is very relative. So it's all
Right.
comes down to what you like and what you enjoy.
Sure.
So for me, it seems like this is right in the middle. It's not too, like I said, tight of a draw and not too loose of a draw. So
I mean, that's where we're trying to be at. You know, we want cigars to draw, obviously. The tighter a cigar is packed, the more tobacco that's in it, and the thicker the tobacco is, it's going to develop that nice thick ash. You know, let's face it, the very first cigars we made didn't have as thick of an ash because they didn't have those attributes. People still love the cigars. I still love the cigars, and it didn't take away from it. But the cigars that we're making today are there's more tobacco. They're tighter packed, and generally speaking, the ash. You know, you can get a really nice ash that's really stacked on something like that versus before. You know, I mean, it's just all in really. I think the big difference today with what we've done over the years is we're just using a lot more to like varied tobacco, and having more choices in tobacco allows us to be more flexible with the flavors that we present and the profiles that we can get. And so I hope that, you know, the one thing that we never hear from a customer is that all your cigars taste the same. And I think today we can, you know, so far we can pretty much tell them, look, I don't know how you could smoke our cigars and tell us that every cigar that we make tastes the same. I think that they're all very unique.
So going to that point, the La Madrina, the original was a Maduro.
It's a Habano.
Habano.
Yeah, it's a Habano that's probably more on the Maduro spectrum, even though prior to the FDA stuff, we used to label the wrapper as a natural, which is confusing. We've since removed it, both because of the confusion as well as due to FDA regulations. You can't use the word natural to define anything in cigars because it would elicit a possible health benefit. You know, so that used to be and still is for the longest time. You see natural used in cigar descriptions. It's a way to indicate the wrapper color or the shade.
Yes,
and
that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's like a cafe brown. It's like a, you know, when you think of a typical old school cigar brown, that's kind of what that natural moniker was. And then if you went up to Maduro, you would get a darker color. And if you went down, you would get to Claro, which would be a lighter color. Claro could be, you know, a shade wrapper cigar. Double Claro would be a Candela, green. And Oscuro would be super dark, and you know, you have Colorado, which would be red, little reddish hints, Rosado. Yeah. Anyways, but natural is kind of right in the middle. That was kind of your garden variety, Habano, natural kind of everyday cigar. That's what you think when you think of a cigar. Cigar brown, I've heard some people call it. Yeah.
So to that point, like I was saying, this flavor is actually not totally different, but slightly different. And I'm going to have to smoke the La Madrinas back to back to actually try to figure out exactly what the differences are.
Very little differences, yeah.
But it's subtle. It's there. It seems like this one is very lighter than the original.
Yeah, you're right. It's very close to the original blend with little tweaks. And the shade wrapper, the Connecticut Shade wrapper, I actually think the Connecticut Shade wrapper works better on our La Madrina blend than that Habano wrapper did. They're both from Ecuador. The shade is obviously a Connecticut Shade grown by the Perez family, ASP, and the Habano is, of course, grown by Oliva Tobacco. Even though they're different species, they're different tobacco types. I'm generally not a big fan of shade. It's got a little bit of a bite to it. It's got a little peppery bite.
And I'm not a big fan of pepper.
Yeah, and I think that this blend offsets a little bit of that pepper. It's not as predominant.
The first time that I smoked this, I was getting a lot of the pepper, and it kind of turned me off a little bit, but it wasn't like, well, I'll never smoke that cigar again. And now it seems like today while I'm smoking it, it seems like it's mellowed out even more. And so I'm wondering if it's because it's had time to rest.
I don't know. When did you smoke it? Do you remember?
It was probably about 3 weeks ago, about 2 to 3 weeks ago when we first got it here in the shop.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If when you get your cigars, going from when they've rolled it, they've shipped it out to you, are they ready to smoke right out the gate, or should we allow it to rest a little bit?
Generally speaking, our cigars are ready to smoke right out the gate. We try not to rush the post-roll process.
Okay.
Typically we set them for at least a couple months. There may be less time here or there depending on what's going on, but I would say on average we're probably at a couple months.
And that's it's sitting there
after it's rolled.
After it's rolled.
Yeah, which
at the factory. So
I've heard that the industry average is about 9 days.
Oh wow!
I mean, that's the numbers I've heard. I don't know how true that is, and I can't remember who told me that. But generally speaking, with many cigars, they don't sit for an extremely long amount of time post-roll.
Okay.
The tobacco going into the cigars will be the one with the age on it. But after rolling it, generally speaking, they're not going to sit there for years, as maybe people may think.
Okay.
Not to say that there aren't companies that do that. I've heard of a couple companies that do that. I would think that to make it economical and to make it possible to do such a thing, the cigars would have to be very expensive.
Okay. Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't know personally of any factories that I've been to that sets their cigars and they roll them and they set them for years, and I've not seen that in my time.
Because I know I've talked about in previous episodes, it's probably a good thing to let your cigars sit and age at least for a couple of weeks to a month or two, just to allow the flavors to mellow out.
Yeah,
and marry together.
Yeah, when cigars are rolled, you can tell when you roll cigars fresh, they're going to have a certain taste. And then after a week, they're going to have a certain taste. And then after a month, they're going to have a certain taste, And when they roll these cigars, they're wet. So the reason we also age them for a couple months is that when cigars get rolled, they're very wet.
Okay.
They have a lot of moisture content in them. And when you put them in an aging room, the Spanish term is escaping me, but basically. Yeah, starts with an E.
Okay.
I'll think of it. Let me go to the restroom, and then it'll come to me. So that's going to bother me. So yeah, I mean, when they go into that essentially climate-controlled aging room, what happens is they have a chance to dehumidify.
Okay.
They have a chance to let that moisture that's inside the cigars kind of seep out, and the cigars are ready by when the moisture content in the cigars is right.
Okay.
If it's too high, you will incur mold in the cigars. And so what will happen is, in order to accelerate the shipping time, to get them to ship quicker, they put dehumidifiers in the rooms.
Oh, wow.
Suck out moisture.
Okay.
It's because you want to suck out moisture from the cigars. If you don't dehumidify it, you can, of course, leave it in there for a longer period of time, and it will gradually, naturally let go of that moisture.
Okay.
I don't know scientifically, or even from any other standpoint, if that really matters a whole hell of a lot. What I know from my experience is that, generally speaking, you kind of want to set these cigars in for at least 30 days, and they will kind of meld together. Hey, Troy, how you doing?
Good.
I had to give a shout out to Troy, the proprietor of Sequoia Cigar.
Actually, would you like to come on?
Okay.
Hey, we'll cut that part out in editing. But what I will say...
Escaparate. Haha. The E word.
We got the E word.
I got the E word.
And I don't know... Do you know how to spell it?
Yes. See? It's phonetic. It's exactly like it sounds.
It'll be down there, obviously.
So, yeah. What,
And that is the aging room.
Yeah, I think 1 month.
Okay.
I think, when they put the cigars in a big wheel and they're all melding in the process, I think it changes. Of course, it changes the flavors and the moisture not being in them. When you smoke a wet cigar, the way the wet cigar tastes versus a dry cigar versus an overly dry cigar, very different, right? Okay. When you take a cigar out of the humidifier, you throw it on your shelf for 2 weeks and you light that thing, it's probably going to be a little bitter because that tobacco is very, very dry. It's going to spark like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But if you turn around and smoke that same cigar and it's too wet, it's just been rolled, you're going to have a hard time keeping it lit.
Okay.
And the flavors are going to be very muted. And so obviously, I think, the general rules of keeping cigars at X percentage of humidity are probably good for the general amount of cigars, right? I mean, it's probably a reason why that 70% humidity or 65% humidity kind of number exists. Best smoking conditions. And then our cigars, I mean, after they sit for 30 days, they're packaged. First they test say it's 30 to 60 days. They test the cigars. They put a psychrometer into the head of the cigars randomly to see what the moisture content is at the head, and then they put it in the foot.
Okay.
And if it's within the tolerances, then what they do is they begin packaging them. And by the way, they poke through the head of the cigar.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
They
destructively poke through the head of random cigars in the wheels. Okay. And they replace the cap so that you don't have the two vampire fangs in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Most people don't know that. Yeah, they do that. And they need to test the moisture content, because if you ship these cigars too wet, it could cause mold, which could cause consumer health issues.
Correct.
So you don't want that. So these cigars are then packaged. They're cellophane. Our cigars are cellophane. Some people don't cellophane them. I believe in cellophane for a variety of reasons. We talk an hour about cellophane.
Yeah. And we'll cover that in future episodes.
Yeah. So they cellophane those and they put them in a box. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong with that process. For instance, painted boxes. If you use painted boxes or you have boxes with glue in them, these things are breathing objects. They'll accept any of those influences. So if you have something bad that it's next to, it's going to pick that up and you're going to taste it in the cigar. These things are packaged, they're cellophaned, and then we put in Boveda packs in there. Okay. And then they're freezed. Before they're shipped, they're put in freezers. And generally speaking, in the freezers at Noxa, they have a certain formula to where they drop them to a certain temperature gradually, and they raise them back up gradually. Oh, wow. And the reason they do that is because by doing a gradual freezing process, it is easier on the wrappers. If you shock freeze a lot of wrappers, they'll pop. When you smoke them, they'll pop. You've seen it.
Yeah. I'm wondering,
happens.
So that's probably another reason why it has popped.
There are times when that happens, and I don't know the exact, I'm not Bill Nye the Science Guy for tobacco, but that is the reason why they have these very expensive walk-in freezers that basically they put them in there, they gradually drop them the temperature to kill off tobacco eggs. Correct. And then they gradually bring them back up so that you don't have bug problems with the cigars. And so as that process goes, then these things are shipped. In our case, they're air shipped, so they take about 2 days to get to Miami from Esteli, Nicaragua, and then from there they're trucked across the country. Depending on the season, obviously, LTL trucks and whatnot are not temperature controlled and things. So really the only thing that we can do is put Boveda packs in there to make sure that the moisture content and humidity stays good. And with cellophane cigars, Boveda packs in them, shrink wrapped, and then the boxes are also shrink wrapped. Okay. Pretty darn good. We used to not, our original cigars that we did were non-cellophaned with Bovedas, and I will tell you what, every cigar box that we received, the Boveda was rock hard. Oh, wow. So just that 2 weeks of transit on a cellophane cigar in a box with a Boveda, you could immediately tell, just from the Boveda, that there was moisture. Probably the cigars were accepting moisture. Whatever was happening, caused them to get very dry.
Okay.
And for the last 3 or 4 years since we've been doing this new process, I rarely, if ever, see a completely rock hard moisture. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to pivot a little bit because I want to make sure that we talk about. So we've talked about your La Madrina Shade. Can we talk about a couple of more cigars of yours? Okay. So we also have
Desvalito. Yeah.
Desvalito, and this size is
That's a Robusto.
Also Robusto.
Yeah.
This is also one of my favorites. I'll go ahead and zoom in here so that you can see. I'm not going to smoke this one right now, but then we also have.
That's a Siempre Rosado. So that's a dark Rosado that we made that came out recently in the last year, and that is in the Churchill size, which that's the one that all the geeks like smoking. So I figured I'd bring it. Not say that you're a geek, but
I am.
You get geek tendencies. It is called Student of the Leaf.
It is Student of the Leaf. And season 2, you're going to see why we call it Student of the Leaf, because we're going to geek out and actually dive into cigars, the construction of cigars, the process of making cigars. Right now, season 1, we've pretty much focused on just the culture, the cliff notes, if you will, but also just the culture of the people, which we're also going to do in season 2 as well. It's going to be a bigger season. But anyway, so yes, I'm definitely a geek. Definitely.
It's a good thing.
All right, and you have a couple of more cigars in your line as well too. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I mean, we have Siempre Sun-Grown, which is the orange band of that. We have Cubo Claro, which we are kind of phasing out and kind of retooling the original Cubo blends that we made initially. We used to have a Cubo Maduro, which is a San Andreas dark San Andreas wrap cigar. The Cubo Claro was a Connecticut Shade cigar. Those we're kind of phasing out because we're retooling the blends, we're retooling the boxes, everything. We have La Madrina in a Habano, which is probably more on the natural Maduro wrapper side. We have the Shade that we're talking about now, we're smoking now. We have Desvalito, which is this cigar right here. What else do we have? Oh, the Borrachos. We have El Borracho in San Andreas and a Connecticut Broadleaf. Okay. The San Andreas is in a red band. It's a box press cigar, and the Broadleaf is in a blue band. And that's they're very different cigars, even though they're very similar and they're both box press and they have similar sizing. Just changing the wrapper is tremendously different. The wrapper that they grow in Mexico, in the San Andreas area, and how that presents versus how Connecticut Broadleaf presents is two different cigars. And then there's a little tweaks to the filler too. But what else do we have? We recently announced a Union Break, which is a small cigar.
Yes.
Yeah,
I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah, we just recently started shipping that this week. It's a big 150 count tray with 3 different cigars in the 150 count tray. Okay. There's a Connecticut Shade, there's a Connecticut Broadleaf, and then there's a Connecticut Shade, Connecticut Broadleaf Barber Pole. And they're all 4x38, so they're very small cigars. They have a slightly sweetened tip. Different market. Okay. Different, maybe not the cigar geek market per se, but more of the somebody that wants to smoke a small cigar, that wants to have a little bit of a sweet tip, and that's kind of their wheelhouse.
But I will say, as a cigar geek and just a student of the leaf, trying all cigars is probably a good thing. That way you just have knowledge of what's out there and just the different blends and techniques and such.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else we make? We're coming out with a couple new projects here real soon. We've done some special editions. We've done for Small Batch Cigar, smallbatchcigar.com. We've done a Siempre Rosado and a Corona Gorda. We just released a Desvalito blend and a Short Bellicoso for Luxury Cigar Club.
I saw that as well.
Doing very well, apparently. And we got a couple more small projects, one of which involves a La Madrina, which you're going to love. and we got a couple new blends. Yeah, we got a lot. There's some stuff in the hopper.
Yeah, nice.
We're cranking. We're cranking. Oh, Kubo Sumatra. We got a Kubo Sumatra. That's probably our most highest rated per se cigar, and Sumatra wrapper based on the original Kubo blend. But yeah, I don't think I left anything off. Did I leave anything off? Nope, that's about it.
All right. Well, so that I'm not taking up too much more of your time, I wanted to say once again, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence, the knowledge, doing this interview, because I know that your schedule is very tight. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Anytime. Happy to be on here anytime and geek out with you.
Oh, well, hopefully we'll do it again in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Trey.
And to all of the listeners and the viewers out there, I just wanted to say, make sure, if you haven't already, like this video. If you have any questions for Ian Reith, drop it in the comments below. And make sure you also subscribe to this channel. Until next time, continue to smoke, continue to enjoy, and continue to learn, because we're all students of the leaf.